Let's take you here now. Pupils won't be forced to return to school once the phased reopening begins on the 1st of June. Many parents and pupils are anxious about the opening of schools. However, the Basic Education Department says alternative homeschooling plans can be made. The department says it's doing all it can to keep pupils safe from COVID-19. Matric pupil and Junior Johannesburg Mayor Tahir Tayob joins me now via Skype to get sentiments on the reopening of schools. Thank you very much, Tahir, for joining us. Before we start on the reopening of schools, I'd just like to get what life has been like for yourself under the lockdown and having to school from home.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
What has life been like for you as a matric pupil under the lockdown?
The connection is quite bad. I can't hear what you're saying.
Okay, we're going to try and re-establish again that connection. If you can just hang 10 for us, Tahir. We do apologize for that. We'll
I can hear you.
You can hear me now? If you can please go back to that. Thank you very much for your patience with us. What has life been like for you before we get to the reopening of schools under the lockdown?
Life has been quite challenging, given that this is uncharted territory. You know, whether you go to a private or a public school, it's definitely a change in the manner in which we interact with our education systems. So it's definitely been a struggle adjusting, and especially being in my matric year, it's been very challenging in, you know, getting your portfolio done, your assessments done, and it definitely does require a lot of practice.
Absolutely. This is, after all, a very big year for you as a matric pupil. Hearing that schools will reopen on the 1st of June, what went through your mind when you heard that?
So I don't think the situation is, you know, as black and white as it's painted. I think that on the one hand, it is crucial that we do go back to schools, given, you know, the essential nature of schools, given that we can't have a backlog in, you know, the education system going forward. So I definitely see the logic behind the schools being opened. However, I think it is very important that the health of the students should not be underestimated and, you know, need to be taken into account, you know, properly. Essentially, what we look at is that you have a large number of schools who don't even have access to, you know, water and electricity and clean water, let alone now they're expected to go back into schools. So it definitely needs to be taken in such a process that does advocate for the most vulnerable, because essentially those are the individuals that are going to be most affected by the reopening of schools at the end of the day.
Right. In your engagement with your peers, what is the sentiment among pupils? Are you nervous? Are you excited?
I think it's a mixture of both. I think on one hand, you know, my pupils are definitely excited to continue with the curriculum and to resume normal school. However, there is a large element of fear. There is, you know, this fear that you're going to go to school and you're going to catch the virus because you don't know who's been in contact with, you know, someone who has been infected. And based off my interactions, the greater fear is not of the individuals themselves, but rather that they're going to give it to, you know, their family members. They're going to give it to their grandmothers, their grandfathers, and it's just going to, you know, accelerate the spread. So there definitely is that fear among students.
Right. Your parents, perhaps in particular, how are they feeling at this moment? Have you been engaging? What do they feel about you going back to school?
Yeah, no, definitely. So my parents they believe that it is necessary for us to go back to school, given that they've seen, you know, the metrics of, they've seen the process of online learning, they've seen the challenges that it possesses, and they know very well that it is necessary for us to go back to school. However, they aren't taking it very lightly, and they, you know, have been stringent in terms of, you know, buying the necessary masks and sanitizers. So it's definitely a balancing act between the two.
We're wishing you all the best of luck with everything that is unfolding, and of course with your final year when you eventually do sit for those exams. We really appreciate you coming on the show and talking to us. Tahir Tayob is a matric pupil and Junior Johannesburg Mayor.